Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on February 21st, 2022 at approximately 8:52 a.m. PST. We have discussed fear a lot and the fact that society has gone down an interesting down an interesting path, if you will. One that quite frankly has been followed multiple times over the years. Now, I do have a little bit of a different outlook on life, primarily because of the fact that I do actually remember my own past lives and have documented a number of them. I'm actually going into more detail with documenting them myself. One day I may come around to printing, but I wouldn't hold my breath. Likelihood that will be one of those two books that I get printed for my own library, much like the one that I wrote that is a channeled autobiography. That one is more likely to go into print. Okay. But my past lives is likely going to be for my own library, for my own family. Whether it ever goes to print or not is a debatable point at this point. But we've talked about fear and what have you. And an interesting question was brought to my attention. So before I get into that, if you like the videos, absolutely give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel because there's a lot of information coming out on multiple topics. Okay, this is a live recording. So when I get done this, I simply double check the date and post it as is. I don't do any editing at all. That's led to some problems over the last year. But we are on February, what are we on? February 21st. Sorry, didn't want to pick my glasses up. February 21st. Well, on March 6th is my 1-year anniversary of doing these videos. Now, we've talked about a lot of things. Okay, and there's a lot of change that's happening right now. But I got a message from somebody the other day that is something that I do feel needs addressing. We've talked about this issue that you cannot change the past. Okay, and it is pretty blatantly obvious there's a lot of you out there, myself included, that have been crossed, that have done things that probably people were having trouble forgiving us for. Now, since you cannot change the past, you cannot undo that which you've done, neither can anybody else. Okay, even God himself cannot undo what's already been done. He can alter it, he can change it, absolutely, so can you. But you can't undo it. So, the question that was posed was when somebody has crossed you, when somebody has done something to you that has created a major problem, and let me just call up this one little message here so I can get it right. Okay. Some things, like the fact is you cannot correct it. And this individual did say, they did repeat what was said, what we had talked about. You can't, and this is quote, you can't unsay what has been said. So true. Sometimes when people say things that they can say things that cannot be corrected. Okay, what happens is people turn around and they say, oh, I'm sorry, I'll never do that again. And they turn around and repeat the process. Now, there's this funny thing called forgiveness. But to be clear, when we talk about forgiveness, this does not mean forget. It means forgive. And the reason for forgiving, intriguingly enough, is not for the person that made the transgression. It's for your own well-being. Okay. The trick is to forgive them enough that you can move forward. Now, it would be foolhardy. Okay. This neat statement that's come out of the church repeatedly is amazing. Turn the other cheek. That was said multiple times. Absolutely. Turn the other cheek. Nobody said get dizzy. Okay. If somebody has done something to you that you're having trouble forgiving them for instance, somebody steals from you. Okay, now it takes a lifetime to build trust. To build trust, it takes a heartbeat to wipe it out. Okay, in just a few short strokes, you can destroy somebody's trust, and that will sit there. Okay, many of you are parents where a kid has done something that broke your trust, and you found a way to forgive them enough to move forward. This does not mean that you forgot what they did. Okay. Now, needless to say, when we're talking about fidelity issues, if your best friend goes and crawls into bed with your husband, you may run out of a best friend real quick. But let us remember, okay, two major factors. Whenever a transgression of that caliber happens, there are two people involved, not just one. But forgiveness simply means coming to terms with it to a point where, okay, am I still, am I angry because of what they did, or is it now just a question of I'm angry because my ego's been bruised? More often than not, way more often than not, the problem is your ego. And this is why it comes back to the idea of looking at your heart and asking yourself, why am I so mad about this? What did they do? And oftentimes it's not just the specific what they did. Okay. But when we talk about forgiving, okay, we're talking about letting enough of that pain go that you can see straight and carry on and not carry that grudge against everybody else. Okay, now understand, I've watched this world for many centuries. Okay, and I've tried it before. I tried passing this message on. In all fairness, if I go back to Rome, if I go back to my time in Rome, I spent a lifetime in Rome in the Senate trying to get people to treat each other better. And I warned them, if you don't, you're going to have a revolt. Well, they didn't treat each other better. Okay. Matter of fact, they continued down the same path. Net result, they had a revolution. Well, take a look outside of your window. We have the start of that happening now. Now, this does not mean there will be gunfire. It doesn't mean people will be running around using swords and what have you. It means society has reached a point where we have agreed, without actually saying, oh, I agree with you. We have agreed as a society that this society has to change. The leadership that is going on around the world is leading us back into the dark ages, and it's got to stop. Now, in order to forgive a lot of times, forgive a lot of things, what you've got to do is come to understand how they got to that point. Okay, so let's start with the obvious part. People that are doing things that seem completely irrational, you gotta remember, they have been trained by society since they were born that this is the path to go down. I failed that path. Okay. Net result, I became very reclusive. But this doesn't mean I closed my eyes to what was going on in the world. Intriguingly enough for me, I've been talking to the animals, the plants. I don't bother with the modern newscasting. Okay. And the fact of the matter is the media used to be able to keep things contained. With the advent of the cell phone and the social media networks, you cannot keep it contained. So we have to realize that whatever you're doing, whether you're fighting for something or against it, doesn't matter. It's going to end up out there. Now, society is in a mess. The system is broken, but the system was built correctly. Okay, when we take a look at unions, and I know this will annoy a lot of people, unions had a point to start with, and they still do to a degree. The problem with many of the big unions now is they're going completely against what they were. They've gone completely the other direction. They originally started out with the idea of protecting the worker, making the working conditions safer. Now what they've done and I'm not a union member, never have been. Okay, and I'd probably make a lousy union member anyway. But they've gone the other direction and gone, okay, the people in the power seats in the unions are going, okay, you can't fire that person because he's a member of the union. Yet the guy's not doing the job. That's where the unions have overstepped. That's where they've taken it from being for the people to being for their own pocketbook, in my opinion. Okay, politicians have done the same thing. Okay, they're supposed to be helping guide countries. But what's happened is the big businesses have started putting donations in. I'll give you this donation, but I need this bill passed. Okay, that is not the way the system was built. Okay, the educational system was originally built with the idea of let's get these kids educated so they can become productive members of society. It has changed to let's get these kids out in the open doing exactly what we tell them without questioning. Okay, so that we can get them to do our work. This is where the breaks are happening. Now, the forgiveness thing comes from understanding these fundamental problems. Okay, people are being taught. Okay, children don't come in with a pre-programmed, gee, I'm going to just be a creep. There are some that do. There are invariably, shall we say, rare occasions where there are exceptions, that's the word I was looking for, where people are born with a certain mindset. Okay, I know the last lifetime I came into, when I was born in 1900, yeah, it would have been 1900. I was born in 1900 in Chicago. Okay, I came in angry as all get out, and it didn't calm down. By the time I was 16, okay, I had already, well, I'd ended up breaking a couple laws, and they threw me into jail. In the jail, okay, because it was general pop. It was jail, not prison. In jail, I ended up killing 7 out of 8 people. Okay. And of course, in all fairness, I was the 8th person. But I was that mad. I was that much of an angry individual. So some people do come in very upset. It's a past life carryover. Okay. But on the whole, children come in very lovable, very, very, yes, they're afraid of a lot of things, but they're very curious. And they don't judge people based on skin color or whether there's a physical abnormality. They deal with it on how people treat. Hence why we get back to this issue of do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Okay. The people that are in power right now were taught to be that way by their own parents. No fault to the parents. Well, technically it's a fault of the parents. But you got to realize the parents were taught by their parents. And it's been this way for centuries. So when we talk about forgiving, do not make the mistake of assuming that you do your best not to, of assuming that means forget. There is an old saying that goes, those that do not know history are doomed to repeat it. Well, the sad reality of it is, those that dwell on history have the same problem. Okay, if you continue raising your kids to be angry, to be political upstarts, to fight the system, to try and overthrow the system is not the problem. You, as an adult, even now, even if you've gone down a strange road. I mean, I spent time as an alcoholic, as a drug addict. I never looked down on the people that were there. I still don't. Okay. But I had a choice. I could turn around and teach my kids it's okay to be, it's okay to drink and be violent. It's okay to steal. And I could bail them out of any problems they got into. Thank heavens I didn't have to do that. Okay, I have no idea how I would have dealt with it. Because I never did deal with it, not this lifetime. But when we talk about forgiveness, we are talking about forgiving them enough that you don't let it hold you back from moving forward, and so you don't block yourself off and go, oh, everybody is this badly inclined. Many of you that have been through relationships or have been stolen from, okay, have this problem trying to trust anybody. And I'm probably the last person to talk to about trusting anybody because, frankly, to be polite, trust is not one of my strong suits. At least not from the definition that I've heard most people put it. Do I know that people are going to make mistakes? Yes. Am I very guarded about me personally? Absolutely. My material world? Not so much. Okay. But when we're talking about forgiveness, it's very necessary. The first person you gotta forgive. And this is a critical point. You have to take a look in the mirror. If you do not forgive yourself for your culpability and whatever, okay, in a relationship, it's obvious. It's pretty obvious from my end. Where communication becomes a problem, it is a 50-50 problem. It is not that person wasn't listening. I have no doubt that person may not have been listening, but the reality behind it is they may be listening fine. You may be phrasing it differently. You may be phrasing it in a way that they're not understanding it. And, it's like you're trying to talk Russian and they're trying to talk French. Okay, so you're saying something, they're not understanding it. They're saying something back. You're not understanding it. It's not because of a lack of effort. It's because of a lack of communication. Now, I had it put to me one day by a young lad. And he looks at me and he goes, what if, and he says, just hear me out. He says, what if I'm not really here? What if you think I'm here and you're asking a question, so you're hearing an answer that you think I'm giving. Meanwhile, I'm somewhere else altogether, but I think we're sitting in the same room. Okay, and I'm hearing a different question, so I'm giving an answer to that. But there is no solid connection. Now that probably sounds a lot confusing. I know it was for me for a while. But communication is where we have to start. Okay. And I was asked about, have I ever seen this? Because this whole thing of turning society around. Okay, I was asked, have I ever seen this done before? And the answer is yes, I have. I will go into more detail with that likely tomorrow if I don't get much further here today. But the idea of forgiveness starts with communication, and that starts here. Well, technically, it starts up here. When you're ready to move forward, you'll take a look here. You'll get this drive in your heart to forgive people. Okay, now I had a heck of a time trying to figure out where I was going wrong, because I kept trying to figure out how do I fit into this society, because I just don't relate to most of it. And I really don't. But that problem is not the people's problem. That's my doing. Okay. I've been that way my entire life, as it turns out. Well, I found that out the hard way with the channel autobiography that I wrote. When we talk about forgiving, you start by looking in the mirror and you ask yourself, are you content with the way you're behaving? Have you forgiven yourself for your own actions? Okay. Have you lifted yourself up to the point where you can look in the mirror and go, yes, I've made mistakes. I absolutely have. But since I can't change those, I'm going to move forward. And I'm simply not going to repeat them again. Now that's a challenge because you've already built in a set of habits that produces the same problem. And I discussed this with you a while ago concerning my finances earlier in 2021. Right at the beginning of 2021, I ended up with a major lump sum of income. Okay, it wasn't income, it was an estate. Okay, I ended up with that lump sum in my hand, and because of that, Okay, I managed to get a lot of things sorted out. Thanks so much to Mom and Dad. But the reality of it is, I didn't cure the problem, and I didn't even see the problem until 4 months later. Since then, I have gotten back on track, and I'm now making headway, making movement forward. Okay, and this is something that I am staying deadly focused on because I have to. If I'm going to sit here and tell you this is the path that is the road, I can't exactly sit here and point down the road and go that way. Go that way. Okay, if I'm not willing to go down that road. I'm not looking for, from my standpoint, yes, I came back to spread this message. Working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. I've seen it done before. I remember a time 50,000 years ago when mankind had achieved this level of success. But they achieved it. Their records were all here. So, of course, when the society passed away, there was nothing left. And I will go into that tomorrow in much more detail, I think. Okay, at least unless something bizarre happens. This lifetime, we are at the same point. If society, we've done all this stuff, some of it good, some of it bad. Most of the records are on computer. One EMP pulse in this entire existence of ours, the last 50 years, is gone. There's no record of it. Okay, which means the people after us will not be able to look back to this last 50 years and go, what happened to it? Okay, from your standpoint, what happened to it is this. We have been educated or brainwashed, take your pick as to what you want to call it, to fear everything. Put everything on digital and rely on instant gratification. Now, it's a wonderful thought, but it has drawbacks. Okay, and what we're looking at this point is very simple. It's time to start really reaching out to each other. The way of changing this society, to start it, is communication. And that's where you come in. By spreading this word to every entity you run into. Animals, plants, people, other races, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is you run into, the rules and the guidelines apply. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Energy out, energy in. Each of these laws is equally important, just like each of the legs of a three-legged stool are equally important. See what happens with a three-legged stool if you shorten one of the legs up. This is why they're all equally important. But forgiveness is done by taking a look in the mirror and going, okay, have I, first of all, taken responsibility and accepted the fact that I've made mistakes, that I've done things that were absolutely not only counterproductive, but contributory to the other things that people have done. That other people have done to me. Was I treating people in a way that warranted this? And if I was, am I acknowledging this? Like, I've had relationships and I've looked over them and gone, where did I go wrong? What did I do? And in both of in the one major relationship, aside from my marriage came apart in a whole different fashion. I'm not getting into it, so don't bother. Okay. But the next major relationship I had, I did take a very serious look at. Okay. And I know what I did wrong. And quite frankly, whether they know or not doesn't matter. I know what I did wrong. Okay, it was not all about them, nor was it all about me. It was a 50-50 effort. Okay, the whys, the wheres, all of that. Take a look in your own heart and ask yourself, what did you do? What have you done that has added to your own problem? Okay, by the way, the reason I keep putting the glasses back on is because I got my timer down here and, well, frankly, I can't see it. That's where it starts. The way to turn society around is what you have been doing. Opening up your mouth, communicating what you're feeling, taking responsibility for your own actions first. It was said centuries ago, very clearly, let he who has not sinned cast the first stone. And the individual that said that took their hand, they took the rock in their hand, they made the comment, they had entered the room first with a rock in hand. And they walked up to the front and they said, and this person was very well revered in the community. And he walked out into the middle of the crowd and he goes, with rock in hand, he goes, let he who has not sinned cast the first stone. And this really revered individual took his own stone and dropped it on the ground and walked off. Okay. Now, when you're looking at other people and saying they're doing something wrong, ask yourself this before you condemn them. Number one, have you forgiven yourself? Have you done anything that is wrong that puts you on a better pedestal than them? The obvious issue is, I learned of a politician one day that said, I'm going to live on the social services income, right, for a month to prove they've got enough money. Well, the man lasted a week and went back. He says, nope, they've got enough money. I'm going back to my own life. He couldn't even follow his own doctrine. Okay. When you say something, the only thing you've got in life, in all fairness, the only thing that can never be taken, it can be coerced, it can be confused, it can be altered, it can be lied about. But the only thing that can never be taken from you is your word. Okay. And once it is uttered, there is no taking it back. You cannot turn around and go, I didn't say that, and actually have it no longer have been said. But you can certainly acknowledge your own culpability. You can certainly take that to heart and go, okay, I made that mistake. I should never have done that. And therefore, I'm going to do my level best not to repeat it. But the individual that was asking about forgiveness is absolutely right. Sometimes, when somebody has crossed you to a certain point, the idea of forgiving them is simply so that you can let other people in. If you choose not to let that person back into your life, that is the side effect of their actions towards you. Take a look at yourself. Make certain that you've looked at the responsibility that you've got for the communication problem or for the action. Once you've accepted your responsibility of it, forgive them for theirs. But absolutely, letting them back into your pocket, is not brilliant. Okay, and it's karmically absolutely correct because you're still looking at do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to call this a day and I will be back tomorrow. But until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.